Good afternoon, everyone. This is Hunter Mozingo bringing you your daily market insight video for Thursday, June 24th, just a few minutes after market close here in Jacksonville, Florida, approximately 4:07 p.m. Eastern Time. And in today's video, we're going to review some of our recent trades over the last couple of days in Growtection. Additionally, we're going to talk about 6 leading stocks you need to pay very close attention to in this market. And at the very end, I've got a couple of sectors I want to talk about that were beaten up and left for dead that are starting to make a little bit of a comeback. So before we get to all of that, let's go over what just happened today. Small caps lead, all indices grind higher. You can see they were all green here. S&P up 0.6, the Q's up about the same, the Dow up about 1%, mid caps up about 1%, and the Russell 2000 up 1.3%. As oils and banks actually had a pretty decent day. Usually, I say that often, that leads to outperformance for the Russell most of the time. The market state is an uptrend. I know we had changed it to consolidation last week. Don had it on the indices being mixed, but leaders acting well on Tuesday. And we saw some of the indices that were lagging a little bit make some strong moves, get back above some key moving averages, that sort of thing. We're going to look at those charts in just a second. If you direct your attention to the trend gauge over here, the Growtection gauge, you can see that the short and medium have been changed to bullish or uptrend. And like I said, some of those lagging indices making up some ground, getting back right up into or above some key moving averages. The Qs, the S&P, and the Russell 2000 all above the 21 and acting very well. Market leaders continue to act very strong. That's a recurring thing we're seeing, and it's not just in one specific area or sector. There's nice leadership and behavior in a variety of areas within the market. And long term, we are above the 200-day moving average on all major indices. So before we go look at these charts, as I always do, let me reference the team here at Revere. This is me in the middle. If you have any questions or comments regarding this video or anything I talk about, send me an email, hunter@revereasset.com. You can also email any of these fellas here, Dan, Tim, Alex, or Don at revereasset.com as well. And that could be if you have a question about a specific stock or if you want to know more about our investment strategy at Revere. So let's go ahead and go to the charts. We're going to start with the Dow here. And I mentioned some of these lagging indices catching up a little bit. You can see the Dow getting back right up into and slightly above the 21 EMA. Is actually sandwiched right here between the 21 and the 50. I know that's hard to see, but 0.1% above the 21 EMA and 0.1% below the 50. But it actually poked its head above both of those today for just a little bit. And towards the end of the day, it pulled back just a small amount and finished right in the middle there. The other one that has made a little bit of a comeback here is mid caps. I mentioned it was looking a lot worse than small caps. You can see these two ugly days here, but back above the 21 EMA, that is the green line on your screen there. It's right at 492 more or less, so slightly above it, still sitting about 0.5% or so below the 50-day moving average, similar to the Dow, sandwiched between them right now. Conversely, you've got small caps acting very well above all of their important moving averages. You can see back above the 21 here on the 22nd and really the 21st. They kind of poked their head above and confirmed that there are 2 consecutive closes above the 21 and continuing strength today. Additionally, the Qs, the leader of the market in regards to the indices, ran all the way to 350 today and kind of closed in the middle of the range. You can see it got all the way up to 351.46, closed more or less at 350, and just continuing the strength here. Growth in technology continues to be one of the strongest parts of the market at the current time. And you can also see a hookup in relative strength here on the Qs relative to the S&P over the last 2-3 weeks or so. And lastly, the S&P 500 here, back above its 21-day moving average, got 2 consecutive closes above it, and continuing up today, up 0.6% here on the S&P. So let's review some of these recent trades, and I'm going to run through these relatively quickly. And then I'm going to get to those important market leaders I mentioned earlier in the video. So first, QLD. This is a 2 times to the upside leveraged ETF on the QQQ ETF. And so we bought this here on 6/21, which is going to be this day here as it reclaimed the 8-day moving average. And really, we sold it today as the Qs were a bit extended, and we also wanted to reduce tech exposure for about a 4% gain here. So you can see this is QLD. It looks very similar to the Qs. It's just 2 times leveraged here. Crowdstrike, one of our biggest positions, we took a little bit off here today, and we're actually looking to add more into this. We took a third off of one of our biggest positions here at about an 18% gain. You can see it's holding up nicely at this 250-ish level here. We'd be eyeing a possible buyback or to add those shares back, or and maybe a little bit more. If you saw a little handle develop, allow these moving averages to catch up, it is pretty extended here, which also goes into that decision making. Looking for possibly a pullback to the 8 and a hold, or an undercut and a reclaim to add some more back to CrowdStrike there. ZIM, one we bought yesterday in Grotection, as it had consolidated nicely on the 21, bounced off of it, actually slightly undercut it yesterday and reclaimed. We got some nice initial feedback from this stock here right after we bought it, and then very strong action today. We did have an infrastructure bill passed, which very well could have been boosting this one a little bit today, as it's a transportation stock here. NRGU, this is a leveraged product on an oil and gas index. Essentially, it's an index made up of 10 stocks, mainly very similar to ExxonMobil, Chevron, Conoco, those types of names. And you'll see the chart actually looks relatively similar here to what you see with Exxon. But we started a smaller position here just as a way to kind of enhance our exposure to the oil and gas space. And the stock we currently own in the space is FANG, F-A-N-G, which actually acted very well today. It had a big move up yesterday and came back lower, but nice strength today, up 2.5%. And the last trade I'm going to go over here, LLY, Eli Lilly. We added this one this morning around 2:35 or so, and you can see the volume, the move here, and that is because they received breakthrough therapy designation from the FDA in regards to their Alzheimer's drug, which you may remember another company that also had a positive announcement from their Alzheimer's drug, and that is Biogen, which did the inverse of what Eli Lilly did today. You can see down 6%, breaking the 21, whereas Eli Lilly is looking nice and strong with a big gap up on volume today. So that covers the recent trades. And I actually already talked about one of the leaders. I'm going to go to that one first. Okay, so this is CrowdStrike. And as I go through these, the first 4 I'm going to run through are all owned in Grotection. And the reason I want to highlight these is because these are the stocks you want to pay attention to. You always, if the market is trending higher, which as you saw by our market state and our trend gauge, that is our current stance. You want to be in, or at the very least be acutely aware of what's going on with the leading stocks. So CrowdStrike, certainly one of the leading stocks, has made new all-time highs here the last couple of days. You can see it ran up to 257. Today it actually pushed slightly through that and came back lower. But this one is extended. I mentioned this already. If I did not own it, or if we did not own it in Grotection, we'd be looking for a pullback to the 8-day exponential like you got on this day here. I covered this on the Monday video, and a reclaim, or just a nice little sideways consolidation right here at highs as the moving averages catch up, and possibly some volume dry up as well. The next leading stock you have to pay attention to here is NET, another one that maybe got a little bit ahead of itself. You can see it ran all the way up to 110 today, ended up closing at the bottom of the range, a little bit extended, and a little bit doesn't do it justice. We're still sitting 12% above the 21 EMA here, but you can see, and this is a recurring theme, I talked about it on Monday, leading stocks respecting the 8-day exponential moving average. So if I did not own NET, or if we did not own NET, I'd be looking for a pullback and possibly a retest of the 100 level here, which is also correspondent to the 8-day exponential moving average. If I didn't get that, if that didn't hold, I'm looking for a consolidation and the 21 to catch up to this stock, okay? Next, DOCU, another monster leader making new highs. Like we've talked about with pretty much all of these, this one is not new highs in regards to all-time highs. Let me pull this back on a weekly here. So you can see it got all the way up to 290 here back in September, but it's pushed through all of these previous highs right here, this 275 level from February. Just very, very strong. You can see the volume patterns are extremely encouraging, many above average volume up days, which is what you want to see, and not really any above average volume down days. Once again, very extended. If we did not currently own it, we'd be watching for a possible entry off of the 8-day as it retested maybe this 275 to 265 area where these previous highs are here. But very extended, but that doesn't mean you don't want to pay attention to these. Stocks can stay extended for a long period of time, just like they can stay depressed for a long period of time. The next one here is NVIDIA. Also, like I mentioned, the previous three I covered, Crowd, Net, DOCU, and NVIDIA, all owned in Grotection in some of our biggest positions. Same story. I talked about this on Monday, undercut and reclaim of the 8-day exponential moving average here, and has continued higher. You even saw above average volume the following day on a 2.5% up day. If we did not own this one, we'd be doing the same thing, looking for an entry off of the 8-day exponential moving average, either a bounce directly off of it or an undercut and reclaim. If you don't see that, you're going to watch for a possible entry off of the 21 EMA as it possibly consolidates or pulls back here. So the next two are not owned in Grotection, but they are owned in my beta test portfolio. And the difference really between the first four and these last two here is these aren't making all-time highs, or they're not particularly extremely close to all-time highs, but nonetheless, they have had massive moves with significant volume, and that's important here. So Roku, absolutely monster move. I mean, you can see the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days it's been up. 5 of those days closing at the top of the range, every single one of them, with the exception of this one, pretty significant above average volume, as you can see there. This one, very extended, as most of the other ones I've covered are. 16% above the 21, 8% above the 8-day exponential. What I would be looking for here is a bit of a breather on this name as the moving averages catch up, and possibly a retest of this 397/400 level. And you might get that in a matter of 2 days, and that might correspond to where the 8-day exponential is as well. So I would be monitoring this one if I didn't already own it for a possible entry around this 400 level if it decides to consolidate or even have a relatively steep pullback to these moving averages, the 8 or the 21, as these moving averages catch up to price here. And the last market leader I want to cover with you guys, Inphase. Similar story to Roku. It's not at all-time highs, but you have to take notice when you get a strong move on volume and you're dealing with the leading stock in a resurging sector. So this is a solar company. There was actually an announcement today that the US would block some imports in the solar industry from China, which actually really boosted FSLR, First Solar. But Inphase was down 1 to 2% earlier today, ended up finishing green, a great sign of strength. And it's the same story on most of these leading stocks. I'm looking for a reclaim, undercut and reclaim, or a bounce off of the 8-day exponential moving average. If you don't see that, I'm looking for consolidation to the 21 as these stocks move up and out. So lastly, I mentioned 2 sectors that were making a little bit of a resurgence. There was some positive headlines regarding marijuana stocks today, and you can see MSOS making a pretty strong move the last 2 days here. So up 4% on the 23rd yesterday, and then up 3% today, trying to get back above these moving averages, not quite able to get back above the 50-day moving average here. But you want to take notice of these 2 volume days here. I know it's not outstanding by any means, but it is above average, and they really have struggled to get anything going with significant volume for the last 3 or 4 months here. So just a sector that's starting to possibly shape up. I just keep an eye on how it acts into these moving averages, into this 40 level. One of the leading stocks in this space is Green Thumb Industries. And you can see it had a nice day today as well, up 6% on a 44% above average volume day. They have not had many of those above average volume days in recent memory, and also pushing through all of these moving averages that were really tight right here. And lastly, I already mentioned one name in the space, but the solar space has been making a pretty nice move. You can see a number of above average volume days here on this ETF. This is TAN, and running right up into the 200-day today, and not quite able to get above it, but holding on nicely. You can see it got above with some nice volume here above the 50 and the 21, and consolidated a little bit for 2 days, and then it's just trickled higher for the last 3 days here, up 0.5%, up 2%, and then today up 1%. You can see the volume today, this day here, and even some of these days back here where it first got back above some of these important moving averages. So the marijuana and the solar sectors, maybe two sectors that have been beaten up to keep your eye on and see if strength can persist in those areas. So that's going to wrap it up for the video today, everyone. Thank you for listening. As always, if you have questions, please email me, hunter@revereasset.com. If not, I will see you guys on the podcast this weekend and on next Monday's video. So enjoy your weekends, everyone.